Have you ever played Rainbow Six Siege and you're like, bro, I don't even know what playstyle or role I should be playing? And we all know each player has their own strengths and weaknesses, so how do you find your own role in Siege? Well, in today's video, I gathered two of the best coaches in Pro League, and they're going to give their thoughts on how to play each role correctly and how you guys can translate that to your ranked gameplay. And this was my most viral video on my YouTube channel, so thank you guys for the support. And let's try to hit 2,000 likes on this video and subscribe if you're new to the channel because we're on the road to 1 million subscribers. YouTube, today I'm here with two of the special coaches in Siege. We have Super, team of Shopify Rebellion, right?
Yeah, former Sonics.
Former Sonics, you know, Sonics have been Titans in NA and have done very well in international as well. And next we have pro Chinese guy, Fet, Manchester Major, ex-coach for Beast Coast, now content creator for Amity, right? Yeah, but basically these are two of the best minds to pick on how to play certain roles and play at the highest level of Siege. And obviously I used to play Challenger League, but I'm rusty now, so why not get people who know what they're talking about better and listen to them instead. We'll first start out with, we'll go through all different roles, so you guys can use timestamps in this video. But first, let's talk about support. We'll go for Fet first, and then we'll have Super go next. So Fet, what's like your, what is the support role have to do in Siege? Like, how do you play support?
On attack or defense?
We can start with attack.
So I think traditionally, the attacks, we'll start with hard support, right? Because that's like the most consistent role across multiple teams. Is usually the hard breacher and the case carrier, right? Or the bomb carrier, the one that plants the bomb and opens the walls. Traditionally speaking, this role is very, very low performing in terms of numbers, right? Statistically, right? You get a lot of people on this role that basically their main goal, or at least what they're fed in teams, is that their role is to stay alive for the entire round, drone for absolutely everyone, get the wall open, and then put the case down, right? So they open the biggest, most direct wall. They, no one does not expect them to come from that wall, so they have like the hardest gunfights, right? And then they have to walk through said wall to plant the bomb, and therefore they will never have the element of surprise that a lurker or entry would have. So that's typically what attack sees as a hard support. On defense, it's kind of similar, right? Where it's like, it's a low performing role because if you're the site anchor, aka the hard support, your job mainly is like plant denial or to stop a rush, right? Think about a smoke, think about your nitros, think about your chop operators. And if you're really thinking about some certain sites on like bank or like a C4 heavy site, what you do is you flip cams for your team at the beginning of the round, just like on attack, and then you stop a rush maybe, and then you throw one smoke lineup at the end of the round, and you're lucky to get any kills at all if you don't get messed over. And the only chance for frags for both those roles is in a 1vx. So that's my idea of a hard support.
Okay, bet. What about you, Super? So you can go from attack and then defense after. What's like support mean, like a support role mean to you?
Yeah, so for my team, I would say support is, I think there's two versions of a support on attack. One is like maybe the shield player, like Canadian for us is obviously our main shield player. Just a little and he's not the one who plants the bomb a lot of the time on our team. He's about 50%. Surf plants the bomb a lot. Grixer, when he was on our team, he planted the bomb a lot, and they would play breaches. So there's two different kinds of supports, which is like, you have your shield, who he's kind of directing like intel, because he can just walk around with the shield. He's going to be droning, doing things like that. And the way we use our breach is going to have the bomb. Most of the time Troy doesn't. Sometimes he will, depending on like, we have different attacks obviously, but our team uses the breach to open up walls, and then we're holding while we're pushing. And it's kind of like, if you look at Dark Zero with like NJR, when Troy played with him, he had really good stats, and Surf basically plays the exact same role for our team. It's, it's just part of his system where Surf's playing Thermite, he's playing Hibana, whatever, but he gets a lot of kills. He gets I think he had over 100 kills in the season, which for a support player is like crazy. But the reason he does that is because the way we use support is literally you're opening a wall and you're holding to be a cutoff on the push, right? So Troy, the rest of the team is pushing people over. Our supports are holding for them to cut them off. And then once we've cleared, they have the bomb, they have the breach. Then they're just going to go get whatever additional breach they need, get in position to plant the bomb. I think that's probably a little bit different than most teams in terms of support. It's kind of like support on a lot of teams. You just think of like, this guy's going to open the wall, this guy's going to drone everything, this guy's going to then have like the, call out the XQ, he's going to be IGLing. Like, there's a lot of different ways. Teams all have different systems. On defense for us, support's just the site player. I don't think it's a specific operator even. We've had like Legion as our site player, Smoke as our site player, Mira as our site player, Valk as our site player. So for us, I wouldn't say it's a specific operator. It's somebody is in site. This person's main job is to make sure that they don't rush site, because nowadays teams like to do a lot of cheese shit. So they just want to make sure they're not dying immediately, because most teams are roaming, like we're extended around the map. This guy needs to be able to at least delay sight for a bit, and then call info if he's not being rushed, right? So like first 30 seconds, 25 seconds around, figure out if you're being rushed, if it's a direct hit. If it's not, you're on info. You're telling the teammates where the push is coming from. You're playing cams. You know, if you're a Valk or Legion, obviously you can be more mobile too. That just because you're the support doesn't mean you're glued to site. You can leave site and help. It's just that I think one thing for your support player is they have to be smarter in terms of like game awareness, because there's a right time and a wrong time where you could like leave site, or you could call that they're going to rush and they don't do it and everybody runs back to site. So I think the biggest thing for like supports is like high level game awareness. Maybe not as great mechanical skill. It's not needed. Obviously nowadays everybody's like pretty cracked, but the like game awareness I think is probably the most important thing for like a support player in general.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you bring up. Like, you don't have to only play like Maestro or like, I don't know, what's another, like, I mean, even Smoke. Like, yeah. You just have to like mute. Like, you're not just only plant denial and staying on cams. Like, you know, you can still be that player that reads the gap, like, oh, they're about to do this and that, and then you can kind of take that flexible role. I actually like that a lot. So that's actually pretty good. We should
split the video into attack and then defense, because I think defense is a lot more map sector oriented roles, whereas attack's more like traditional like naming of the roles.
I'm down. If you guys are cool with that, yeah, I'll have that chopped up. So all the roles that we'll go over. So we have support, IGL, entry, second entry, lurk, flex, roam, and bridge. Is there anyone you guys would add or take away?
So I want to kind of go off of what he said, because I defined his role that he mentioned on support. I define that as cuts for attack, or some people call it soft support. I call it cuts, which is actually, he's right. Like, you often have your ace player play, especially on like a map like, you know, Clubhouse or something. You'll have your secondary breach or someone play something like that, like your util. You're like secondary, you know, util player, your secondary droner, but he's on like a very, very stationary role. So like if you take a look at Chalet, for example, or Border, two of the most attacker-sided maps in the game, these are maps that have really, really heavy cuts. You'll see teams often put a guy K9 and slant, and that will cut off the entire rotate of the top floor side of the map, right? So that's what I define as cuts, right? So yeah, it's very true though, and these players will eat up a lot. Our best performing player at the Manchester Major, Gunner, was put on like the ace, the cuts position, like kind of like a mailboxy, like stationary role, right? If you think of the best example on Bank, would probably be, you know, elevator repels, you know, the guy that sits on the, you know, the lobby windows and opens up the E3 wall, get the long go all the way down into stock and stuff. People that basically cut the map in half and cut off rotations, they eat up a lot, because if your entries are properly making them move, they will be forced to move into the crosshairs and get the freebies, right? So our top performing player, Gunner, was on that role. And I typically, like, on my teams, at least in particular, I typically like switching my lurk on and off cuts depending on what they see the enemy is responding to their plays.
Yeah, so like, would you say that's kind of like a more modern new term for like flank watch? It doesn't have to only be watching your back, but it could be like, again, like you said, cutting off like certain angles during the round.
Yeah, I think flank watch is very, very outdated. I know there's like a couple really like low level teams and like a couple teams that still do it, but I think flank watch is a very, very outdated role. But this is kind of, yeah, as you would say, like the modern version. If you want to look at another example on Skyscraper, right? If you're doing like an office over against like the T, your two cuts, like if you're pushing the roamers back towards like Shrine and Drum, your two cuts would be through Terrace and Dragon Window, right? Just like cut them off.
Bet. So yeah, I guess we can, so you'll say cut is kind of like a secondary support?
Yeah, there's a lot of terms for it. I just like cutting it cuts because I think it's like a simple word, but
yeah, we could do that. So yeah, so we'll go down the list and we'll just give a brief explanation. We'll just only focus on attack, and then once we finish this, we'll switch over defense just to make it a little bit easier. And then, yeah, both of you guys can give your input. So how about IGL? I know both of you guys probably have experience on IGL, right?
Yeah. I mean, lessons. I have less like lower tier experience than Big Soup over here. But yeah.
So, what would you say, like a brief summary of like what do you think makes a good IGL in Siege?
I mean, obviously, I IGL'd for like a million years in Pro League. I think the name IGL, like, obviously stands for End Game Leader. An important part of that is the last part of it is like leader. It is important to have somebody who, in the server especially, is like commanding what's going on, trying to keep people emotionally in check, trying to make sure we're staying on track, like being somebody that people trust what they're calling and that kind of thing. Because like the truth is like, if you're one of the best attacking teams in the world at Invitational, you're like 50%. So that means the best IGLs in the world are calling 50% of the time correctly, maybe a little over that, right? Like, that doesn't seem very high when you think about it, but that's how hard it is to attack. So, you know, like, it's important for the team to understand, and obviously the IGL to not get too frustrated when half the time the shit you call doesn't work. But for us, like, and for me when I played, the IGL is somebody who they have a system. Every IGL has a system, and when you bring an IGL, like we brought in Canadian to our team, right? We used to have Geo, and then before that, I IGL'd. And during when we had Geo, it was kind of like up and down, but we all see the game differently. Like, I don't see the game the exact same as Troy. My teams were always a bit faster, like more random, but Troy sees the game a different way. However, just because like it's my team, right? Like I'm the coach or whatever, like I made the team a long time ago, I'm not going to bring Troy in and be like, yeah, we're going to play fast now. We're going to just play how I want. Right? That wouldn't make sense. So you have to play. What I can do is like, I can bring some of my like cheese plays, like you probably said, Invitational. We ran a lot of like sense plays and like, you know, quick kind of plays like that. Like that's stuff that I can add to and already like, obviously it's Canadian, a proven foundation of like a style of play. So like for an IGL on attack, that person it's their system. The way they call the game is how the team plays, and the players on the team, because to me the IGL is the most important thing on a team, the most important player is the players on the team have to be able to fit into the system. And if you don't fit into that system, then you have to find players, you know, you do it slowly, obviously, give people time who can fit into, you know, what the vision is. So like being a leader, understanding like what to call, when to call it. And I think like a lot of younger IGLs have an issue where like they think like you have to be able to be adaptable, because most of the shit that you're going to call before a round, very rarely is it just going to like, that's just how the whole round plays, right? Like you're never just going to call something and the whole round just goes exactly perfect. Like very rarely is that going to happen. So an IGL, going back to that like game sense kind of thing, is like they have to be able to understand all the comms going on. The team has to be able to communicate everything to the IGL so he can get a good enough picture in his head about what's going on. And then he has to make the best decision for what everyone else is going to do. And to do that, going to that leadership part, like you have to have the respect of your team. You have to be, you know, like obviously some people are veterans or more proven, so they kind of like just earn that. But like the IGL kind of has the hardest job on the team to do, because they have to be thinking for the team all the time. They can't necessarily be thinking in their own best interest, right? Like historically, IGLs have the worst stats on teams, and they have to be okay with that. So it's like, it's a selfless role. And like, sure, if you're a good enough player, you know, like a Canadian or a Lickifak or somebody like that, you will get the acclaim with it. But if you know, look around, like most of the time, the IGLs, the support-ish kind of players, are the guys who get dropped off the teams first, because they're the ones sacrificing everything, and you can't really see their contribution to the team a lot of time outside of results.
Yeah.
I
think it's also like duly noted to like on the most valuable player thing that the players in Siege, like the singular players with the most amount of titles, are IGLs, right? Like your Canadians, your Fabians, right? Like the most consistently across different teams to win titles players are IGLs, right? Because that's how impactful of it is in a game like Siege, especially with how many layers there are to it. It's not like Valorant and CSGO where you just walk down two different lanes every single round and hope to God it plays right now. It's like it's the most adaptive, most complex game in the world. I do have a bit of a polarizing take on IGLs though. I think a lot of traditionally, like at least against like the norm, I think some pro league players do agree with me. But I think traditionally people think the IGL needs to come up with like the plan, right? Every single round, this is the plan, this is the plan, this is the plan. I actually think, at least at a very high level, the most important skill an IGL have is just making the team play together. And like, I think some people like to call them nothing calls. I actually think they're quite valuable, right? Like, okay, guys, like reset, 3, 2, 1s, off my contact. Okay, what should we do? Like, ask some questions. What should we do? What do you want to do? How does it look on the roam, right? If you put your IGL, which typically they are on support, on like the site anchor, right? And now the site anchor is getting hit on site, right? The site anchor now needs to say, okay, I can't necessarily get on cams for you guys. How does it look on the roam? What's going on over there? Let's formulate a plan together. Because in my opinion, the best possible plan formed within a round is one that involves conglomerating all the info from all 5 POVs together as much as possible, right? So we see a lot of times today in a more fast, aggressive meta that entries or lurks will find a gap or opportunity more often, almost way more often than an IGL would. And I think it's the IGL's job to make sure that once that gap is identified, the way the team plays around it is proper, right? Because one person just goes in, dies, another one goes in, dies, another one goes in, dies. It all goes to shit, right? Making sure it's 3, 2, 1, wrangled, I think is infinitely more important. I do think there's levels though. I do think if you are a newer player, you shouldn't listen to what I'm saying. Because if you're making a T4 team, I think there's levels to this shit, like Super said. Like I think like a lower level IGL, I think there's 2 classes we can make level wise, what I call a stepping stone IGL. A lower level IGL, it's more important for you to literally teach your players how to play the game, right? It's like, it's not ranked. You can't just swing everything. We have to play to fucking plant the bomb or something, right? And that's why you see so many tier 2 IGL stuck there for literally years and years and years and years and years. And you see them keep picking up the same type of like, oh, I'm gonna pick up this unknown talent because they'll actually fucking listen to me and get bitched by me, as opposed to someone more developed who has an ego, right? You'll see these guys like basically consistently pick up like noobs and develop them very well, but then those noobs that they develop will go on to pro league while they stay behind because they are teaching their team the game. I think as an IGL in your career, once you hit that state, you need to transition to be able to manage egos on your team and balance ideas and be able to accept that your entries will find gaps and take away the reins from you. And then at that point in time, you transition into like a pro level IGL. So I think there's 2 very different classes. I have a very polarizing take on a pro level, but for the new viewers out there, I think at a T4, T3 level, it is your job to kind of like micromanage like a little bit, especially for teams over aggressive, and kind of just teach them the game.
I think you said something that's interesting to me is you mentioned like a defensive IGL. That's not a role that exists for us.
Yeah.
Because I'm of the belief that like maybe at a lower level, but if you're like a high level pro player, it's like obvious how to play defense. Like you have positions. So rather than like somebody needing to be telling people what to do or counting shit down, it's like it's on the individual players to understand like where the identify where the push is coming from, who plays off of who like each other, and everybody's kind of calling to like, you know, like if we have roamers, right? Like for instance, Ambi has to be able to call if he should fall back or if they're going to 3, 2, 1 power and that kind of stuff. So we've actually never had like, even when I played, I would call the strat, like I'd call the defensive strat whatever we're going to run. But like there's no IGL like in the round. So I think that's like one difference in terms of, I guess, us that we don't really have on defense. The other thing you said is like, to the point of like an IGL calling everything. I think I'm pretty sure like every pro team at this point, or at least the good ones, have what I would call like shot callers. So like Troy is calling like the main push, but then that doesn't mean you have to do it, right? Like if somebody sees a gap, they can just fucking go. There's not, you know, Troy, like we're not going to say no. So it's on everybody else. So like what we call a shot call is they see a different play that you can make. And then we just have to be in a position to like, if Ambi says he can get in sight, everybody just needs to be in a position where they can make a play off somebody getting in sight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think we do like obviously have a strict IGL role there, but it's not to a like degree where it's like, if Troy says this is what we're doing no matter what, right? Like people can do whatever they want as long as it's like, I mean, it needs to make sense, obviously, but if they see the play, we're never going to be like, you don't make the play, just stick to the plan kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just clarifying like this distinction just because like I have been like looking at lower level teams, and lower level teams like clearly have like a one dictator system, I think, for the most part. So I've been working for them like, or like I've been looking at them more recently than not. But you mentioned the defensive IGL. I think in practice you are correct. Like I think in practice you're very much correct. I think I only designated it because for my team specifically, Hot and Cold was a better site player than anyone else at the time. So for that reason, like we needed someone like, I think it was way better for someone off the site to call the strat adaptations next round, because they were seeing the main push more. Which I know Troy doesn't play site, right? Like Troy, yeah, Troy's an off-site player,
Yeah,
right? So yeah,
most of
so
the time
he'll see more. Yeah, yeah. So I think mostly defensive IGL, what it ended up for my team was just like the adaptation caller for strats defense wise. And then that way Matt could compartmentalize and only worry about calling the attacks. But for the most part, you are correct. Like I think at the end of the day, the roamers, it's on them to coordinate together and call like, well, okay, well, should we fall off together? Should we press them together? You know, what's the play here?
Beautifully fucking did. I'm learning so much already, bro. But that was good for IGL. So how about entries now? Entry role, you know, obviously you guys think, you know, put the best fraggers on there. So what makes a good entry? And Super, you can go first.
I think probably most important thing for an entry nowadays is they got to be super fucking cracked, because like
Minimum.
everybody has like when I played 1,000 years ago, like I could run in a room and have a chance. Like nowadays, everybody at like, especially when you make international events, which you know we usually make, like those guys don't fucking miss at those tournaments.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
when you're running in a room, think about Siege. All the set, like you don't necessarily always have a drone. You don't necessarily always have info. Maybe they have info on you. People are holding like punch holes or pixels or like crazy angles on you. So the most important thing you got to have is you got to be fucking cracked, because if you're an entry, outside of being cracked, like you're fearless, right? If somebody, like if you have to take the map, if you have to take real estate, you're running in the room and you're just going to try to win the gunfight and hope that it's followed up. But like for an entry, I mean, the most important thing, and an entry to me is only an attack role. Like there's not an entry on defense to me. It's only on attack. That is a person who doesn't care if they die. They don't care about stats. They're just opening up the round, and they're not second guessing shit. They're just going to be fearless. Like for us, obviously it's Ambi. You know, when Fett was coaching, it was Gavini. Those are guys who are like, you tell them to run in a room, they're just going to be like, all right, let's see what happens. And they're going to try to open that shit up. And like, to me, that's really all it comes down to is like, I'll use an example because I think it's stupid, but Pamba on Dark Zero, to me, he's an incredible player. He's like to me, he's like a top 5 NA player. He's one of the best entries in the world, in my opinion. At this invite they just had, he had horrible stats. And like, sure, that was like maybe a bad event for him, but I see people like, oh, Pamba should be dropped and shit. And it's like, dude, you cannot, like, if you drop Pamba, you cannot replace Pamba. Like, great entry players those are people that like, they're almost irreplaceable. And that's why like a player like, you know, we dropped Gunner for Ambi, and Gunner's like, you know, won the major MVP with Fett literally the next stage. And even when I dropped Gunner, I was like, I know Gunner's good, but we don't have an entry player. And like, I'm willing to drop a player who, you know, people forget, we bought Gunner out for a lot of money. So like, I also spent money to get Gunner on the team. And it's that important to have an entry player that you're willing to give up like a player that you know is good to try to have like one of those like just upper notch like entry players. And I think entry and IGL are probably the hardest roles to play and the most important roles on a team. And so like, that's why I'm always just like, give me Ruchi or Rexen, give me Ambi, give me maybe to be determined, like give me people who can fucking run in a room and open up rounds, and I'll always have a chance in the round no matter what the fucking score is. And I think that's what makes them so valuable, is they're gonna do shit nobody else can. Like, I watch Ambi scrim on a daily basis. I watch Richie scrim on a daily basis. Those guys are doing shit that like I could play a million hours. I would never be able to do. Most people, 99.9% of people can never do the shit they do. And that's just like, those are rare players. Like you have to have them on teams or shit's not going to get done.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Once again, I'm going to break it down at like a lower level because, you know, that's audience I've been working with a lot more recently. I think there's I'm going to go on a rant here because I think there's a really big misconception on entries to the point where for me in my head, back when I was a low-level IGL in Tier 3, I've already defined in my head the difference between an entry and a true entry, right? Just because those guys on Ashe doesn't mean they're fucking walking in the building first. And I'm sure Super's been frustrated multiple times watching Tier 2, seeing the Ashe player last alive 6 rounds in a row, right? Like, and I think at a low level, people constantly think, let's put the guy with the best aim on Ashe, and then he'll walk in and kill everyone. But that's not the case. There's people that are way better at aiming when they're like a sentry turret on a cut angle than when they have to walk in a room fully blind, maybe no info, into 1,400 zombies, and you have to hit a flick gunfight, right? That's 2 different types of gunfights. One's very reactionary, one's very proactionary, right? So I think there's true entries. I think people like Gavini and Rexen and Ambi, those are true entries. Right, they will walk in a building, they have no fucking fear, and then I think there's fucking baiters. So for me, I've put a lot of value on true entries, true primary entries that will actually primary spearhead the push, because I think that is a speed limiter of your team. If you don't have a true entry in your team cannot go fast, because there's no one to spearhead that push, right? Even FaZe, which is historically a slow-ass team, they have Cyber. Like, one dude was like wife and kids, 28 years old, still running in the building at like Mach speed, right? So for me, the most important thing for me with being an actual, if you want to call yourself a true entry, a true primary entry, is that fearlessness, that, you know, understanding of an entry gunfight as opposed to a baiting gunfight, as opposed to a refragging gunfight, but also being able to set up your own entries. You know, if you're the dude that, oh, I'm so cracked, I don't need to talk, people will drone me in, your performance will dip up and down every single team you're on at a lower level, because depending on the quality of your support players, right? If you truly want to be a consistent entry fragger, then you truly want to set up your own cut drones, tell people to get on your drones, call your own 3-2-1s on your own gaps, and set up things for yourself vocally, such that your engagements are not purely dictated by your support, the quality of support players every single time, at a lower level, right? At a lower level. Obviously, at a higher level, it's much more complex than that. But for those of you coming up, those of you fraggers coming up, don't just be a quiet bum. Don't just bait your teammates. Think about if this is the actual role you want, because you need to be a spearhead. At the end of the day, the space is what matters, not the kills you get.
Yeah,
Totally,
I think. Sorry, I was just gonna say, because he just made me think of something there. But going back to like the IGL thing, like, the entry player, that shot caller role that I was saying, is like, a lot of times that is the entry player, because they're like seeing the shit immediately. Like, entry players are gonna drone themselves sometimes. They're gonna like be in positions to where they're close to sight, or they're like the people whose job is to literally take map. So those are also like primarily a lot of the shot callers on teams, because they have to tell people to follow them up. They have to say like, I can take sight, I have a gap, like all that kind of shit.
Yeah, true. Very good. Would you guys say there's a secondary entry role now, or is it kind of combined, or not really a thing anymore?
It's map dependent. It's very, very iffy. Like, second entry, it just really is map dependent. I think like second entry kind of like blends in what people think with the flex role. Or what, it just depends on the map, right? Like, if on a certain map there's 2 lanes, you can even have a guy lurk in there. If there's a very like for example, Oregon, like dorms, right? If a lot of people love Oregon, like Trophy is going to be one of like the heaviest pushes you want to push. If there's a consistent like 3-man lane where you have a hard support droning in 2 people doubling up to swing this Trophy guy and take up space, then yeah, there is a second entry. But for the most part, if like it's a more spread out map where you have like 4 people coming from different spots, it like really blends in. It's very, I wouldn't say it's too much of a well-defined role these days. I would say like either divide it into a flex player or a lurk player, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I would say for us is we don't have a second entry, but we run multiple entries. So like, we have Rexen and Ambi, and I think people who follow Pro League know that Rexen, for instance, plays a shit ton of Ace. And the reason we do that is because Ambi is entering one part of the map, Rexen is droning himself entering the other part of the map, but he's on Ace, so he can open up shit for himself. So we don't really consider it like a second entry, but we just have 2 entry players. One is getting droned and one's kind of like operating off his own info with the ability to kind of, you know, like do shit himself a lot of time. Now, like, granted, they are entering towards the same thing, so it's not like this guy's just like fucking by himself, just like fucking around with Ace. Like, he's entering towards the same as the objective as the other entry player, but they're not necessarily in a position where they're just like one after the other, right? Like, they're entering different portions of the map, but that's like that's a hard thing to do. That's just the benefit of like having a couple of players who have that ability. Like not every team would be able to play like that, obviously.
So that'd be a great transition then. How would you explain how to correctly play the flex role then on a team?
I mean, flex is the dude who's playing all the other shit.
He's just,
Yeah.
he's just basically
Quite simply put,
basically
like,
just
that's
the
guy.
Thanos on the team.
Yeah,
just,
like
doing
quite
everything.
simply put, the flex player is somebody who is good at every role, which is why it's hard to be a good flex, because like sometimes you might be asked to play support. Sometimes you might ask to be play a fragger. Sometimes I've even seen like flex players on shields. Like your flex player is just the guy who's going to fill in the role. Cause like, and this is for attack and defense, is like when you're making a lineup, right? You have a breach, you have an entry, maybe you need like a soft breach. Like then you get to a spot where it's like, okay, we need this. Like we're in this lineup, we don't have EMPs, so we need a Thatcher. In this lineup, we don't need Vert, so we need like a Buck. We need nades in this lineup. The flex player is always the fifth guy who's like, that we need this to make this lineup work, so that guy's playing that. And he just does it, doesn't complain. He just knows how to play like everything to a degree where it's like, you know, for me, I'm speaking at like a high pro level, so that guy can play any role at like a high pro level. But for most, you know, for most people, it's just like you gotta be able to play everything and understand how to play it. Like, not just hopping on it and be like, sure, I'll play Thermite, and then, you know, fucking both bandit tricked and then no walls are open. Like you got to know what you're doing, which is why it's hard to be that role at like a high level.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard to define flex these days in Siege because there's so many options you can bring on attack.
Okay.
Nowadays, I feel like there's so many different metas. Like for example, if you're on Cafe and you're clearing against like the basement floor site, then typically you want to bring double Vert just in case one of them gets C4, right? So you see a lot of teams bringing Buck and Ram. So like having a secondary, like a lot of people think of Flex as like the Vert operator, right? Like, oh my god, it's just the Sledge or the Buck, right? You're just the Vert picker, or like you can pick, you know, maybe Gridlock if you want to like watch a flank. But then if you look at a map like Clubhouse, well then like it's one of those maps where you like very rarely do you see a team ever taking Rafters with a Capitao, right? So like then you have these util execute ops that actually also, some people classify them as flex, right? Like, okay, the X Factor operator, the execution operator, right? The Grim, the Sense, the Glaz, the Capital, the Ying, right? To like once you get to the end round or the mid round execute where you want to take a certain portion of map control, they have the vital utility to play it. Or, you know, maybe the second breacher. So I think flex is such a really wide role nowadays. For me, on my teams, very specifically my teams, I like to have the flex guy be like the X Factor guy. Like they'll play like the Deimos, the Blitz, like, oh, because I know I had Spirits, right? So like it's very, very specifically tailored for Spirits, but like the Deimos, the Ying, the Blitz, like just like the Capital, like the dude that has like that X Factor utility that can swing the round around on execute. So that's my definition of a flex player. And then I typically have like entries on like soft breach, and it varies very, very heavily from team to team. But it's, you know, I think it's, the game's so diverse nowadays. I did want to talk about shields. I think it's a big distinction. I think very commonly on teams, your slower, more supporty type IGL player will be a very good pick on a shield for like Montaigne, and then your entries will typically be put on Blackbeard. That's what I see a lot. Spoits, like, or not Spoits, sorry, fucking first entries will be put on Blackbeard. And then Blitz, I think, is like, it just depends on how good whoever is on Blitz. I think I've seen like Troy play Blitz. But for us, it was like Spears play Blitz way more than Hot and Cold. So I think it just varies. Whoever's like the best at Blitz.
So it sounds like, yeah, there's flex is just depending on the map, and obviously there's so many different freaking roles now. So, and I know you touched up on this of your cut player, but for a lurk role, you know, what would you guys add any extra? And obviously this might be dependent on different maps, bomb sites, but what would you guys say like makes a lurk role like successful?
Not baiting. I think there's a difference between, and I like, this is a huge T2 issue, I think, is where like somebody's like lurking, but they're not actually like doing anything. Like, not, this is going to be insane to say, like, no glaze, but like, I think a good lurk kind of player in T2 is Stompin', because like he will take ops, and a lot of time he's by himself, but he actually takes the map and he like looks for gaps. Like, to me, a good lurk player is, yeah, they're by themselves, but they have the game sense, like the awareness and, you know, a degree of fearlessness, but also caution. So they're not just like first pick by themselves across the map, where they can effectively play off what the main push is, because the Lurk is not with the team. The Lurk is a solo player. So they're playing off of the team, but they're able to also identify, like, again, gaps. If they see like gaps in the defensive setup, if they see, you know, an opportunity to make a play, like they're kind of it's a playmaker role, right? Like, you know, we haven't necessarily played the exact same, but when I played, Grixer was our lurker, and he was like, I think he still has the all-time kills per round record at SI. And that's just because that person kind of has the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want, as long as they're doing it like in a manner that the team plays off of, or they're playing off the team. So that's the most important thing, is like, if you're a lurker, lurking isn't like you're crouch walking across the map, your whole team's massacred, and you're like, you know, just got into the building and you're like holding an angle, waiting for somebody to run into you. Like, a lurker needs to be a playmaker, or they're kind of just useless.
Yeah.
And for
this is gonna be a very
I was gonna say, like, Gunner's your Lurk player, right?
Yes. So yeah, this is gonna be a very, very like really shitty example, but I think one of like the only good example I can give of, like, you know, what a Lurk actually brings to a team, like when the role was first incepted. Because I think a lot in really old times in Siege, actually, I feel like even old teams had Lurks, but like I think people started really utilizing it correctly around the like Astralis, Rogue, G2, and W7M era. So if you think about Bank, right, and you think about like roaming down the top floor, if your team, like traditionally, if you're like at a very low level and you're doing a fully one-sided push over, then the enemy team in their crossfire spots simply just have to watch one side of the map, right? And like having another entry come from the other side, sure, is great, but they have no resources, and that's what they're called a lurk, right? They're typically entering with minimal support from their team, other than maybe like one cut drone hell at the beginning of the round. But what happens is, if you have even one dude on the other side of the map coming lobby side up red stairs, that makes it so that the enemy has to question whether or not they can watch fully onto one side. And I think at a high level, at least, because Super broke it down at a low level, and I fully agree with everything you said, at a high level, the true power of a lurk is, in brain rot terms, the aura they have in that spot of the map they enter, right? I think the most important thing a lurk can do is get in the building off the rip of the round as fast as they possibly can, get inside the building, take a certain part of the map, and then start having that presence that now the enemy, okay, I can no longer be safe anywhere I go on this map, ever. Cafe is one of the best examples for this, because the most popular top floor site, the most popular site in ranked at least, is top floor, right? And the most popular defenders like to do against these window repels, all for taking top floor, is run out, right? They love to run out, you know, every single, like, you know, underneath. They look through this door. They love to fucking run out over here on any people repelling. Like, they love to run out on these people. If you have a lurker getting into reception at the beginning of every single round, then you have every single run out cut off immediately off the rip of the round. This is the best example I could possibly think of, right? So just having that presence on the map that, okay, shit, I'm a defender, I no longer can just walk anywhere that isn't the main push, I think is the most important idea of a lurk. Then it gets really complex, right? It's like if you have a lurker trying to come up white stairs off the gap, like Super was saying, but your main push is coming piano side, okay, what's more advantageous to us? To have this lurker take first contact and then pull all the defender eyes onto white stairs, and then our main push goes off of that, or to have our main push be the distraction, but there's no beepers on main stairs, so this guy comes and hits a backstab while everyone's distracted looking that side. So it's very, very nuanced, and it takes a lot of awareness, right? Because one, you can't just walk in and die in 2 seconds. Then you lose all the pressure you had if you're solo taking a part of the map. But two, you have to maintain that pressure such that your entire team doesn't just fucking die, like Super said, and you're just like sitting there on fucking first floor, okay, I just walk up a staircase and I have nothing for me right now, right? You have to constantly apply pressure in a way that helps your team or plays off of your team at all times while staying alive.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I actually always tell, like, this basic, like, tip in ranked is, like, you can see a lot, there's always going to be a lot of gaps, a lot of things going on, even if you're not that much coordinated. If you're solo queue, just like look at where's a gap or an opening that you can take. Like you getting that one kill, oh, their back is turned towards me because they're too busy facing the breach. Then, you know, you can just hit them from a different angle. So that was a very, very good point right there. Now, I think we've covered most of for attack. Going to a little bit of defense, I know you brought it up a little bit, Super, but what would you guys define, like, what makes a successful roamer or roam on defense?
I think the most important thing on like a roam is the ability to play time, like not just immediately throw your life away, because the whole point of a roam is obviously like ideally you can get 1 kill or 2 kills and you get out, but like a successful roam can be you get 0 kills but you waste 2 minutes, or you go 1 for 1, because like there's a lot of statistics that we track where it's like if a defender goes 1 for 1, like a 4v4 is like an 80% defensive favored round. So like if a roamer literally gets 1 kill and then dies, that they just made you a huge favorite in the round. Like the hardest thing to defend is a 5v5, because then everybody on attack can be in a perfect position. If it's like a 4v4, there's a gap somewhere that they're used to covering. Then if somebody's planting, now they're man down as well. So like for us, the main role of a roamer is to obviously like try to get kills, because you're going to be fighting the entry points, you know, typically, right? Like you have people with you, of course, who are like playing off of you, but mainly like you want to kill time. You want to, if they're trying to clear you, you want to make it difficult for them to clear you. Like shoot their drones, so they have less info late in the round. Going 0 for 1 in like 30 seconds is like a horrible roam, because you didn't kill time and now you're man down. Whereas like you can literally go 0 for 1, but if you're effectively playing your area, then falling back and playing your area, playing off other people, like coordinating plays, like, hey, I'm above here, somebody can C4 below me, right? Maybe you have a setup like that. Or you're roaming here, somebody's roaming next, like in the next room, you play my cross or you play my contact, and you're getting other people kills. A roamer for teams can be in a lot of ways. It could be a bait. It could be somebody who's being baited by everybody else. It could be somebody who like, literally you just tell them to take, you know, back like a couple metas ago was like take Solus, run around, be annoying, and like try to find kills, like just flank. But like roamers on teams could have all different roles depending on the setups. But to me, the like typical like default idea of a roamer is they know how to play time, they can like communicate effectively so people can play off of them, and they're able to get kills. Because like obviously you don't want your roamer just man down every round. That turns you into a huge like disadvantage now.
What are you at?
And yeah, absolutely. The like at every single level, I think the ability to like the awareness to whittle down time and resources of the enemy team before they get to execute is the most valuable thing a roamer can get. Right, enemies trying to take full map control, and you're just shooting one drone, falling to the next floor, shooting another drone, falling to the next floor. You've wasted like at least 30 seconds of their time because you shot a drone. You're a ghost now. They spent at least 30 seconds redroning it, but you're gone, and then they have to drone the next floor. That's the value you bring. So by the time they get to execute, they have the lowest amount of resources, bodies, or drones you can have. For me, just at a very, very low level, because I think at a low level people think of roam just like as an offside player, I like to divide it into 2 subsections of roamers. So for me, there's extension roamers and there's free roamers. So extension roamers, if the site's T, would be your office player, right? Like, so you would actually reinforce these walls. You would maybe give him some utility. It would be an Azami or something. Extension roamers play on a setup away from site. Right, and a free roamer is a roamer that typically has very little to no util or setup at all, but they're playing like, you know, by themselves just to have like a little bit of presence on like a part of map. So maybe you're below player on like a T, right? The guy with the C4, the guy that can flank up a staircase, the guy that's there just to make sure, okay, if there's a lurker, I 1v1 this guy, or I have flank options open just for pressure. I think one of the best examples of this is like Chalet, right? If your site is kitchen, you obviously need to hold above, right? So above the site is your extension, right? Because you want to hold vert over everyone. So all these guys together on extension roams, everyone's going to know they're there because their setup is there and they have to play off each other. They're taking very broad, very like direct gunfights. Whereas like you want one guy maybe by library side, if you have less setup over there, just running around, being sneaky, more ratty, way less direct gunfights, way more subtle, way more flanky. But he's a roamer still because he's offsite technically according to the definition, right? So he's like a free roamer. He can pick whatever the fuck he wants to help him. Like in old metas, it was like Solus or Valk typically. And yeah, typically like this guy is a lot more ratty of a player, is a lot more hidey, sneaky, but also is a lot more aware of when like the biggest thing is if you're solo like that with no setup, you're going to get cut off in 0.2 seconds. They drone you out 2 times, you're instantly dead. So having the awareness of when to get back to your teammates or continue to waste time on a roam is very, very important. So yeah, for me, I like to divide up into two subsections: extension roam and free roam.
Yeah, that was very good explanation for him. I think a lot of people can take away some information on that. So Super, what is the bridge role?
So for us, we define the bridge role as like Fett said, like you have one or two roamers, maybe you have your site player, then maybe you have like two other players, right? So we define a bridge player as this guy's playing an area in between site and in between the roam. So like a bridge, right? Like he connects the two. So like if they're rushing site or they're gonna go direct to site, this guy can get back to site fast. He's also kind of protecting maybe an area so they can't just like hit the back or something quickly, right? If they're clearing, now this guy can play a cutoff to make sure that like the roamers don't get cut off, or he can run up and help. So like, you know, it's called a bridge for a reason. He's a solo player, but he's quick to move around depending on what's being called. A lot of times this role could be like, we've had this person be Cade, like kind of they're just for their shit, and then they get, you know, wherever they need to be. That they could be like Legion, they could be Castle. A lot of the times, like the role, honestly, you could play it however you want depending on your strat, but the most important thing for it is that like you're able to quickly identify what's going on, and you understand like what you're filling, because you're basically trying to fill gaps quickly based off of what's going on. Because like in theory, every single defense has gaps, but the quicker you're able to like identify what the attack is trying to do, you fill those gaps. So the bridge player is trying to like, you know, essentially lift up the bridge or whatever, close the bridge, whatever you want to say, to make sure that these gaps get like removed, or so the roamers now know they can't come from behind. The site player knows that now the other part of site's watch, like, you know, that kind of stuff.
It's kind of like a mid-round reinforcement type thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a player who, they're not mobile, right? Like they're moving around, but it's a player who doesn't necessarily have a direct job each round. Like their round to round job can be different because they are pretty, what I would say is like reactionary to what the attack is doing. So they need to be able to kind of, it's kind of like weird to say, but they almost need to be able to like predict what the defense is or the attack is doing, so they can kind of be quicker reacting than the attack is able to like take advantage of where they're not, in a way. Yeah,
that was very well said. I've always like known like the bridge role, but I just never like actually heard it, like the term of it. But that's like,
yeah,
that's good knowledge right there.
Absolutely. I think the best example, at least like a one floor bridge, right? If you think of like Villa defending Aviator site, you have your bar player, and then you have your main stairs player, and then if you're extending Master side, right, you have your stats player, and then you maybe have like a Astro or Deer player, right? The guy in between those two, you have two people over here, and you have a guy top red. That's your bridge player. He's smack in the middle between site and the roam, so that if the enemy team is doing a 5-man push on a Master, well, 2v5 doesn't look that good, right? Your bridge player runs to help these guys, all of a sudden it's a 3v5. That looks way fucking better, right? Same thing with site. If they're hitting site, it's a 5v2 on site. Oh, turns out we have a guy that can walk back right into AV to help the site hit. It's very good. A best example, in my opinion, of a 3-dimensional bridge is on Clubhouse, when you have like a SSG room. Pretty old and default now, especially. Let's say if you have an extreme version of it, right? Like let's say you have like 3 people top floor, right, and your site is basement, and you just leave one dude on site, right? Your bridge player would be this bar player with the moto hatch open, right? Typically people make holes across blue, so that if this guy gets hit on site, well, your bar player can drop the hatch, immediately have holes into blue against the site hit, which usually does come from blue, right? If they top people need help, then you would just go up a staircase, right, and then you go help them out. So this is kind of a bridge player between floors, right? So that's 2 examples for anyone out there who's concerned about what a bridge role is. It's just like, dude, between site and the roam, just to make sure that 1, the enemy can't cut in half the site and the roam and just let all these guys fucking stranded and just like hit one side, and 2, be able to help and add bodies to site or the roam at a moment's notice, just so the enemy can't like, okay, it's a 4v1 on site, let's just hit site.
Yeah, that's very well said on that. So we went through most of the roles, and I know we wanted to do mostly attack, but I think you guys provided already some good information on defense from both you, Super, and Fett. So is there any like on any of these roles, maybe like we didn't cover a certain side, or maybe like anything you want to add on some of the roles we have so far?
At a higher level, I think there are like spots on defense called death spots or power spots, depending on like just like for example, I think garage rafters, at least nowadays, it's like a vital piece of map control, right? But
Yeah, these
oh well,
these map blueprints are goated.
Your editor can do it. Garage rafters is so vital, but then
Yeah.
there's so many takes now. Like every single time you're rafters, you sit there and you go prone like 90% of the time, and then like you get Capital Fire native 4 bajillion times and you insta die unless you go for a hop over play, right? Like unless you're Richie, which like then you just kill everyone. Richie's fucking different. I'm sorry, Super. No disrespect to Richie, but like most of the time in other teams, your rafters player just gets bitched the entire round. But you can't not hold it. If you don't hold it, you insta lose the round. Right, so like that's like a death spot, right? It's like it's such an important position, but it's fucking AIDS. Like you just get railed, you just sit there and you just get railed, and you just pray to God that you waste like more than a minute there. So that to me that's a death spot, and then a power spot is also another very stationary position, but like is less to like fucking die on it. So like Cafe Pixel with the shields, to me that is a power spot. Cafe VIP, I think Cafe is just a big power spot map. So like spots like that where like it's like a little like nook or cranny that like is very powerful, and you can just sit there and you have to hold it for as long as you can. Spots that like you never, almost most of the time, you mostly don't want to leave. I would say if I were explaining this to a bronze player, I would say like you want to fight this spot heavy because you have the power, or you have to hold it to die no matter what. So I think the two like power spot death spot would be like very like niche roles to add on to that, but other than that I can't really think of anything else.
The role name for us would be like a turret player. So like going to what Fett said, like using my own player as an example, like Richie's playing rafters, it's a stationary position similar to like a turret, so he's just gonna play that and try to survive as long as he can. Like back when Oregon was in Pro League, obviously it's in rank still, like your blue player, a lot of time it's like that person's a turret player if they're pushing blue. Like you typically don't want to give up blue, like they're gonna sit there and fight it until they die. It's just a position where you put people who are very like Rexen is extremely good and like stationary positions where he's just like sitting here and he's just taking fights, like he knows what he's holding angles, like whatever he needs to do. And that's literally what the role is. It's just you're gonna be put in a spot, it's gonna be a shit spot, but you just are really good at playing it a certain way. You can stay alive, and you, like I was saying earlier, like if you can go 1 for 1, that's like a huge success on those kind of roles, because you are going to be blasted with fucking those rolls. That person's gonna be flashbanged, they're gonna be fucking Deimos tracked, they're gonna get bucked. Like that's not the fun role to have. But if you like action, that's the role where like that person is going to be in the shits. And some people are like very good at playing, you know, kind of in the shits positions.
Yeah, I almost forgot the most obvious one, like CC on border. Like any CC on border player against like a good push, you are just in the fucking shit.
Dude, whenever I play that shit, I'm getting
he just made me think of that too, is like, because I didn't even mention it, which I should have, is like the position of that player is not something that they're like giving up, right? So like if you're a turret player, you're playing like a position like CC, they got to kill you to take CC, and people should be almost running in. If they kill that person, somebody else is running in there to replace it. So like the turret player is like, going back to, he said, the power spots, those are the important positions on a defense. So like every defense at like a high level, you understand like a win condition to the round, like how you're going to win the round, what's important to win the round. For most teams on border, CC is like the win condition of the round, because it can cut everything off from both angles unless you go like direct archive. So like those are the positions where people are like, it's like a zombie apocalypse trying to take it, because you're gonna have to kill somebody, and then people are gonna be running in there trying to retake it from you. Like those are the positions that are, like I said earlier, like you're gonna be in the shits. It's not gonna be fun. If you're really good at it, you will get a lot of kills. If you're not, you will not have you'll have a rough time.
Yeah, well said. So now that I think we've gone over most of the roles. So like, and like kind of I like how you do it, Fed, where you kind of like dumb it down for like different viewers, because it's easier to digest and helps them get like a bridge to eventually learning more competitive play. So for both of you guys, what would you guys say like are the top 3, in your opinion, no particular order, roles that people should learn and take on to practice in ranked, like at a T4, T3 level, just so like if they haven't been champion before, you know, like what are 3 roles would you say are like the best for them to get better at?
Ranked? I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm the one to ask on that, but I would say like I like
Like, I guess
support,
maybe not ranked, but like, I guess like a just basics,
well,
like
so,
fundamentals
I
of a
mean, there would
player.
be a huge difference if, like, I think, like, honestly, if you're somebody, and I'm not even saying like droning people, because like if you're solo queued, for instance, who the
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're not fucking droning people, but like just being able to take the fucking breach and like understand what walls and shit to open, like I think
Mhm.
that's obviously like important, because I've seen some crazy shit, like, or how to like set up site on defense, like I think that's obviously important. And then, you know, like, not to be that guy, but like just entry, right?
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
entry,
No.
over,
So
like
entry.
the
Yeah.
first guy
Like.
that fucking shoots everybody because you're,
Mhm.
you know, you're just more skilled. That can get you to a certain point in ranked, and then you run into people who are like obviously more advanced. But like, to me, the two that I think would stand out is somebody who actually knows what the fuck is going on. So like your support player, and somebody who's just like skill diffs everyone, who's just running around like a cracked little kid.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think I think like yes, like you could play ranked and you can like fucking, you know, run around every day, not know what the fuck you're doing, push a random window or just ban in a window, not really know what's going on. That's cool and all. If you actually want to learn the game, number one is to support on attack on defense. Just like Seth said, knowing the default setup for every single side, being able to do it by yourself because your teammate probably won't fucking help you if you're solo queued. Being able to open a wall, oh my god, like if it at a low level, knowing that like okay, you know, if someone's tricking the wall, only thermiting one side of it instead of the fucking middle of it, where like they could just trick any side and get your thermite off. Some people don't even know that. Some people don't even know you can rappel up to the top of a muted wall and like thermite it right side up and make it like an open breach, right? So like those very basic skills, very, very important. I'd say a very helpful role once you get around like plat to diamond, plat, emerald, diamond is lurk or free roamer on defense. Lurking on attack, just like being able to like go in, get in by yourself, hit a gap. Because in rank, people just leave gaps all the time, or on defense, like hitting a flank or a spawn peek off that. And yeah, those would be like my two most helpful roles. And then obviously, if you want to learn like being able to hold on a power position like rafters or CC, like your turret player on defense, or for attack, it would be like entry, I guess, just like being able to walk in front of your team. But on like a closing note, I want to like I really want to emphasize this to the new players. Like if you think about all these positions, if you think about like what they entail, like right, you realize that all of them take different types of gunfights, right? You realize that the turret guy, the guy that plays, you know, inside of fucking, let's say, where's my clubhouse, dude? I thought I had it. Yeah, like the guy that plays rafters is taking way different gunfights than the guy that's just running around in lounge. That's taking way different gunfights than the guy that's just, you know, in sight, right? Or like throwing smoke lineups, right? So realizing like, okay, am I better with more mobility? Like, am I better if I have a lot of space, but I have no setup, but I'm just like playing like a rat? Am I better like, okay, I know where everyone's gonna come from all the time. I'm just in the shits, just fucking constantly playing aim labs. Am I better like, you know, more laid back, but like at the end of the round, I get to throw a smoke lineup and I get to really stay up and help my team? Recognizing like what you're good at will help you figure out, like in comp at least, what your role is, right? Because if you're a free roamer player that's getting 20 kills and we're just like, you know what, dude, you're so good at this shit, let's put you on like Raptor so you can just eat up. And then like you're so used to having the whole map of space, and now you're refined to a rafter that gets Capital flashed, naded, and is watched the entire round. You're gonna perform horribly, right? So don't assign someone a role in comp if you're a new IGL or something just because they're good at aiming, right? Think about what their actual skill set is and what their actual selection of gunfights would be good for them would be.
Beautifully explained, bro. Shit. Well, I think we've gone over most of the roles. I mean, I know, like I said, we were going to start with attack and defense, but I think you guys really just hit it head on, and you can apply those fundamentals to both the defense as well. So, and then you guys added those tips where, sorry, not right now. Sorry, my mom just walked in. But what was I saying? Shit, I already forgot what I was saying. But yeah, I think unless you guys have any other like things you want to add to any of the roles, but I think people are gonna digest on this information for the next year or so.
I think for people who are like looking to play competitively, like more than ranked, the easiest way to get on a team, in my opinion, is if you can figure out how to effectively like IGL. I don't think it really matters the role. Obviously, like you have to have a certain level of individual skill to be like an entry. But like, you know, if you play support IGL, like there are very few good IGLs in my opinion, especially in like NA if you're an NA player. So I think if you're like, if you just really want to make Pro League one day, or you really want to get in a comp, like I think a skill set, and to do this, you got to be playing like, you know, I don't know, tier 4 leagues or 5 queuing. Like you can't do it solo queue, obviously, but like trying to figure out and understand like how to IGL is, I have like the worst stats of all time. I was a pro for like 8 years, and I like the game came out when I was 28 years old, and I, you know, like I never could shoot my gun, but I could tell people what to do, and that made like a career for this for me. So like, if you can figure out how to do that, you can have a place on a lot of teams, because that is a very hard skill to find. And you know, obviously, maybe you have to have certain character traits where, you know, maybe you're more like a leader or whatever you want to say, like, you know, more commanding in terms of like can't be afraid to speak, obviously. But that would be my advice, is like if you want to actually pursue like competitive and you don't really feel like you know what role, if you feel like you have a personality of somebody who's more of a like talker or more of a thinker or something like that, like try to like work on IGLing, like just figuring out what you want to do. And the best way to do that, I always say this because the tier 2 teams don't fucking do it, and it makes no sense to me. They got like the worst strats of all time. They have no idea what's going on. Brother, just watch like pro league teams matches, like the VODs. Just get an idea what they're doing, copy it if you need to, try to make sense of what they're doing, and just like go with that. Because like all of the pro teams, whether people realize it or not, everybody copies each other. You might change shit around or like make slight changes, but like if you watch a pro match, if you watch the same map 50 times, the strat's like the exact same, almost in 50 different matches with slight differences, like for ops and whatever. So like if you really want to improve, watch people who are better than you, see what they do, and try to make sense of it.
Yeah, that's good knowledge.
And yeah, I think that's so true. I think also for like a lower level, I mean I know some people like really have fun. Like if you have fun making complex strats, fucking go for it, right? Like I want you guys to have fun first and foremost. But I think the best thing for player development at a really low level, or even like even almost a tier 2 level, is to like Super said, copy pro defaults and just run them. Because at the end of the day, if you're fucking making the most insane niche strats for your team and you're learning those, you will only know those but not know how to play like actual vital positions for other teams. I think mastering defaults is so important for early player development, just not to make your entire team a bunch of statues who only know how to play that strat. And yeah, I think vocality, going off the IGL thing, I think vocality is one of the most important things you do. Not only calling out where the enemy is, but saying, you know, what you're doing, right? Saying everything you're doing, making it so that people can play off of you, so that not only you're, you know, creating a lot more engagements that are not just 1v1s, but 2v1s, 3v1s, but you're consistently able to make those around you better on every team you're on. Right? If from T4 to T3 to T2, you're elevating those around you at every level, then you will consistently perform better than if you're just some quiet guy who never speaks, but you have like a god aim. You will never make it anywhere if you never speak.
Dude, this is some good ball knowledge for anybody. I mean, whether you're T3, 2, 1, maybe not 1, but because they already know everything. But shit, that's all I really have for you guys. So thank you both, you guys, for coming out. I think y'all dropped insane knowledge for Siege that players can digest on for a lot of time. So again, guys, go check out Super, go check out Fet. They both will be watching a lot of the Challenger League, you know, Pro League watch parties. You'll learn you'll probably learn the most from these two right here. So go watch their streams, their YouTube videos, subscribe to them. But yeah, thank you guys both for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Okay, dude.
But yeah, that's a wrap on the video, guys. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it lots.
All right.
Bye-bye,
See you later,
dude.
man.
All right.
Take care.
Good night, guys.
Bye.